Welcome to our presentation for Reaching Every Student Through Differentiation with Dignity by our PLC group, including myself, Kelsey Wall, Brad Petavello, Christy Reek, and Jake Robinson. Our inspiration comes from our student stories. We had varied experiences between the four of us when it came to differentiation and accommodations within our field schools and classrooms. Some of the common struggles we saw in our students were a desire to not be different from their classmates, struggles with reading and literacy skills, students avoiding us as teachers for fear of us judging them, and more. This caused all of us to focus on growing our ability to improve our students' confidence and sense of self-worth in the classroom and outside. We want to be able to reach every student where they're at by considering the barriers they may face in engaging in the classroom. The inquiry question that we delved into answering was this: how do we provide differentiation with dignity for students refusing accommodations? We conceived dignity as the process of reminding students that they are worthy of learning and being involved in that process, even if prior experiences have made them feel as if that is not the case, and accommodations as helping students embody that self-worth rather than diminish it in any capacity. Even when that isn't the reason they are rejecting an accommodation, it is essential to ensure students do feel that they have inherent worth. The findings we will be discussing today are 1. Mindset and RTI, Alberta's Pyramid of Student Success. 2. Shortcomings of UDL, the limits of teaching kids to pass. And 3. French language learning, applying differentiation to learning French. And finally 4. The impact and takeaways of our findings.
In every classroom, there are students who hold different mindsets about their intelligence. Some students view intelligence as something they cannot change. You either have it or you don't. Whereas others view intelligence as something malleable that can develop over time. When thinking about our struggling students, we believe it is not enough to simply provide differentiated lessons or accommodations and expect students' engagement and academic performance to improve. According to Tomlinson, students whose histories have caused them to believe that success is out of their reach will likely either give up on themselves or on school. So it's important to help struggling students develop a growth mindset. We looked into ways educators can nurture growth mindsets in their students to help them see their strengths and potential and engage with instruction. The first strategy is to include opportunities for students to reflect on what is working for them or not and what needs to change. An example of this could be after a quiz, have students write a summary of what went well, how they prepared, and what they can do next time as an assignment. The second idea is to use intentional course assignments that help students anticipate challenges and determine methods of overcoming them. For example, knowing your previous class often struggled with a certain concept, model steps to solve the issues for this class. And finally, you can develop a mantra with your students for when they encounter difficulties. For example, mistakes are expected, inspected, and corrected. One model of support continuum in classrooms we explored is Alberta's response to intervention approach. This uses a pyramid with 3 tiers as a way of thinking about pedagogical strategies to ensure all students have what they need to succeed. To begin, teachers frequently assess student skills to decide which students would benefit from instructional intervention. The base of the pyramid is universal design for learning, where strategies to improve and optimize teaching and learning for all people are implemented. The second tier is targeted intervention for students still struggling with strategies such as differentiation or small group instruction. And finally, the top tier is individualized support for students who require more intensive intervention, such as audio recordings, large text, answering different questions on homework. Using this model shows the highest levels are ineffective without the base. We really want to highlight the importance of planning for diversity starts with the belief that every student can succeed. This model gives us a way of thinking about how we can help students who are resistant to engaging in lessons. A framework that shows importance of monitoring if students would benefit from differentiation and continuously evaluating if interventions are working. With the right strategies and supports, all students can have higher engagement, achieve academically, and have more confidence in their ability to learn. We want to ensure students understand the benefits of extra support and don't feel singled out.
Part of the importance of making sure that students don't feel singled out is the negative peer pressure that being singled out can bring. Ramona Paetzold's studies of students' perceptions of accommodations made for other learning disabled peers showed a tendency among students to consider granting an accommodation like extra time for a test to a single student as less fair than not letting anyone else have it. Rather than make our students who need these accommodations deal directly with negative peer feedback, this is a case where universal design for learning can help mask an accommodation like that. And accommodations like extended time, multimodal instruction, modeling approachability and empathy in your teaching are all essential accommodations for certain learners that also have universal benefits for students in the classroom. At the same time, however, we don't want to over rely on this idea of helping students who require accommodations on passing as though they don't. Although our goal should never be to out learning disabled students who don't feel comfortable disclosing their needs, we also shouldn't only be signaling to them that for some reason their accommodations are shameful or something that needs to be hidden. When we only focus on masking student accommodation, we lose the opportunity to have learning disabled students actively participate in shaping the classroom because we've signaled to them they're supposed to stay hidden. In particular, students who come from backgrounds of lower socioeconomic status lack key forms of capital to navigate towards these accommodations, lacking financial capital to be able to afford diagnoses and disability aids, and oftentimes coming from families that lack the social capital to navigate the kind of bureaucracies to deliver accommodations. And consequently, there's an even greater tendency among these students to hide their accommodation and their need for it, even to the detriment of their own learning. So when we are making our classrooms safe, we need to balance giving students a place that they can fit in when they choose to, while being a space that they do feel safe to stand out when it comes to their accommodations.
Part of our research involved differentiation in French immersion programs specifically. Often, parents believe the best decision to help their students struggling in French immersion program is to simply withdraw them from that French immersion program and place them in an English program. They often believe language misunderstanding is the source and cause of their child's academic struggles and refuse the differentiation strategies offered by teachers and administration, which are intended to aid in the success of the student. Parents may believe content and language should be learned separately to maximize the learning of each. However, according to Lister, language learning is most effective when tied to content learning, as the language is given authenticity and placed in a real-world context where students see the value of learning the language. Research shows misunderstanding the language is rarely the cause or source of poor achievement and grades in course content, such as science, math, or social studies. Differentiating instruction in French immersion is essential to ensuring the student's success. On top of differentiating content instruction, French immersion teachers are responsible for differentiating language instruction as well. Students in content courses such as science will be learning and practicing the content, while simultaneously practicing and learning language skills such as vocabulary and grammar. Some language differentiation strategies include translanguaging and code switching. Translanguaging involves using prior knowledge of a certain language to better understand a new language and content being delivered in said language. Per Lister, translanguaging is used to deploy a speaker's full linguistic repertoire rather than focusing narrowly on a single language. Translanguaging is useful in fostering bilingual development. It is the responsibility of teachers and administration of French immersion programs to explain this research and these findings to parents in an accessible manner, to ensure all parents understand, regardless of their personal experiences in academia.
Much of our investigation has yielded fruitful results for all of us to take back to our placement schools and implement within our classrooms. Each of us have experienced vastly different contexts and scenarios when it comes to differentiation in our classrooms, so we all had different major takeaways from our findings. There were, however, some commonalities. Our conversations largely concentrated around UDL and its implementation. There were even conversations had within our PLC that had us realizing, hey, I've been doing this all along, and it's actually a component of UDL. So we knew we had the capability to implement UDL within our classrooms, but we want to be able to do it in more purposeful ways with more components. During our research on UDL, we found the CAST website that has an amazing interactive UDL infographic that gives you in-depth information on each UDL checkpoint and the research that went into creating that checkpoint. This resource will definitely be used by each of us when it comes to Field 4. While UDL is essential when designing our lessons for our students, we cannot forget that there are times when differentiated instruction or targeted accommodations become needed. In our PLC, we have experienced students refusing these specific interventions when offered, and that was part of the reason that we chose this area of research. There are many reasons that students may refuse these accommodations, including not wanting to stand out from their peers, not being able to advocate for themselves using accommodations, or quite simply, they just might not work for them. It is our plan to go back to our schools for Field 4 and investigate the reasons why our students in particular are refusing accommodations and, using the resources we have found, strategize with our partner teachers and PLCs, both within and outside of the school, to come up with new ways to engage our students and implement those accommodations or differentiation practices into our classrooms.